Welcome to Ahmed Shakil 5858. I am Ahmed Budna. I am thankful to all international news resources. Following headlines have been picked up from English major news channels of America, Europe, Asia, Africa, Australia, and Canada, and AP, AFP, and Reuters news agencies. Now the headlines. Governor of Minnesota, Tim Walz, is the running mate of Kamala Harris. Republicans have criticized and called him as a far-left candidate. Hamas has selected a new leader. Calm and peace has returned to Bangladesh. Britain is still disturbed due to riots. A hotel collapse in Germany. Storm in BC, Canada. Shots fired at hair salon in Canada. Gold medal for Canada. Israeli bombing in Gaza is continued. Threat of Iranian attack. Trump will continue to face cases in court. On Wall Street, Dow Jones Industrial, Nasdaq, and S&P 500 increase. Now, watch the channels.
Tonight, the deliberation is over. The Democratic ticket is set. Vice President Kamala Harris names her running mate, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, as the two kick off a battleground campaign blitz. And all along the East Coast, storms bring relentless rain, life-threatening flooding, and travel chaos. Just moments ago in Philadelphia, Harris and Walz appeared together for the first time. Walz, a second-term governor, former congressman, veteran, and high school football coach, calls his selection the honor of a lifetime, saying he's all in. Walz beat out other prominent Democrats on the Veep shortlist, including Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro. Former President Trump and running mate J.D. Vance immediately pouncing on the pick. Rachel Scott is standing by from the campaign trail. Debbie slams the southeast coast with deadly force and potentially historic flooding. More than a foot of rain in parts of Florida, Georgia, and the Carolinas, with much more to come. Multiple reported tornadoes. A single mom fortunate to be alive after a tree crushed her house. Where Debbie is heading next, Victor Kendo and Ginger Z in the storm zone. The effects of Debbie and another system are creating travel chaos in the Northeast. Ground stops at major airports prompting the delays and cancellations of thousands of flights. The arrest in an alleged plot to kill former President Trump. What we're learning about the suspect and his alleged ties to Iran. What the Secret Service did in response. Aaron Katursky with late reporting. A terrible tragedy. An SUV crashes into a canal, killing 9 people, including 6 children. The emergency declared. Frightening moments as a passenger jet lands on malfunctioning nose gear. Team USA shines bright in Paris. The American women head to the gold medal game with a nail-biter. Gabby Thomas is golden on the track. The amazing finish in the men's 1500. And a whale steals the show at the surfing competition in Tahiti. And we get a sneak peek at the pandas about to make their big debut in America, where you can find them starting this week.
From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is World News Tonight with David Muir.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us on this Tuesday. I'm Lindsay Davis in for David. Tonight, the speculation is over. The Democratic ticket now complete. With her campaign barely 2 weeks old, today Vice President Kamala Harris made her most consequential decision so far, naming Minnesota Governor Tim Walz as her running mate. Just moments ago, they made their debut during a rally in Philadelphia. Vice President Harris and Governor Walz side by side for the first time in front of about 12,000 cheering supporters. Walz, a progressive governor, considered a dark horse, chosen after a quick vetting process, managing to edge out popular Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro. Walz is a retired Army National Guard member, also a former high school teacher and football and basketball coach. The Trump campaign immediately going on the attack, calling him a liberal extremist. The top Democrats.
And we agree anything. Our class is strong. America is strong. Thing will be a defining goal as I am president of the United States.
I'm sorry, this is good. 65% of the country say we're going to say, don't have money for an emergency. Okay, but the middle class is doing great. Joining me now, Caroline Levitt, Trump 2024 National Press Secretary. Caroline, this was like watching something from Alice in Wonder. You know, we're looking through the looking glass tonight. Tim Walz, reaction to that pick, because tonight he and Kamala said they're the champions of the West.
That's an utter lie, and Americans know it's not true. And as President Trump simply stated on his social today, thank you, Kamala Harris, for proving how dangerously liberal you are by picking one of the most far-left governors in this country as your running mate. And by not picking Josh Shapiro, Kamala Harris has proven President Trump's point that the Democrat Party has become a cabal of anti-Jewish, anti-Semitic radicals. Tim Walz is a radical leftist. He is weak on the border. He is weak on crime. He has support of the Harris and economic policies that have created the worst inflation crisis in a generation. Yeah. In fact, Laura, our team just pulled the transcript, and Kamala nor Tim mentioned the word inflation or border once in the entirety of their speeches. Those are the number one and two issues in this country.
Yeah, Caroline, we tagged that tonight on the show because I watched the entire thing. I mean, it was this was you know, I had to take one for the team to watch the whole thing today. No mention of the border, no mention of inflation. But Walz was trying to get in his very kind of oddball, goofball digs like this.
You know it, you feel it. These guys are creepy, and yes, just weird as hell. That's what you see. That's what you see.
I guess that's an argument. Is that an economic argument he's making? A foreign policy argument? An argument about immigration or trade? They're just weird people. So that's it. That's it. I guess that's the campaign we're going to get.
And you want to know what's weird? Tim Walz and Kamala Harris, who support men and women's sports, who support chemically castrating young minors, who support putting tampons in men's bathrooms in publicly funded schools. Tim Walz signed that into law. That is weird. The American people know it. And we're going to continue to bring our winning message of bringing down inflation, securing the border, peace around this world to every corner of this country, including Minnesota.
Yeah, it was an executive order, but he would have liked to have had a law passed. That's for sure. Caroline, great to see you. Thanks so much.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.
Good evening, I'm Amna Nawaz.
And I'm Jeff Bennett. On the NewsHour tonight, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz joins the Democratic ticket as Kamala Harris's vice presidential pick. How he could bolster support in the Midwest.
Tropical storm Debbie stalls over the southeast, dumping torrential rains on Georgia and the Carolinas.
And 140 stars over 50 years. The wall that memorializes CIA members who are rarely recognized publicly.
The role is not an abstraction. You know, each of those stars has a profound human story behind them.
So much for joining us this evening. We appreciate it.
It was great to be on.
Do this
Thank you.
With Tim Walz on the Democratic ticket, it's still shaping up to be another razor-thin election.
A new poll from PBS News, NPR, and Marist shows Kamala Harris with a 3-point lead over Donald Trump nationally. That's within the poll's margin of error. For more details on where the race stands, we're joined now by Domenico Montanaro, senior political editor and correspondent for NPR. It's great to have you back.
Good to be with you.
So there's been a shift in the way that people view this election, who people think will win. A month ago, before President Biden dropped out, a clear majority thought that Donald Trump would win. Now voters see a toss-up. What's driving this change in the numbers, Domenico?
Look at that, right? It's a huge shift going from almost 20 points down where people thought that Donald Trump was going to win. Kamala Harris has just brought a lot of energy to the ticket. Our poll was taken over the weekend before, obviously, Harris made this selection of Tim Walz. But when we look at our polling overall, she's now up 51-48 over Donald Trump. That's a huge change from just 2 weeks ago when she got into the race. And really fueling that are black voters, white college-educated women, and independent women. We've seen a 20-point jump among black voters, 25-point jump among white college-educated women, and 28-point jump among independent women. What I find really interesting about women who identify as independents is that in our last survey, 28% of them said that they were undecided. So
We start the day's other headlines in Bangladesh, where Nobel laureate Muhammad Yunus has been selected to lead that country's new interim government until new elections can take place. The 84-year-old microfinance pioneer is widely respected in Bangladesh. His appointment comes a day after longtime Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina resigned and fled the country following weeks of protests that left nearly 300 people dead. On the streets of the capital today, a sense of calm returned to the once violent streets. Students stepped in to direct traffic while police went on strike to protest violence against officers during the unrest. An Israeli military raid today in the occupied West Bank killed 10 Palestinians amid increasing fears of a larger war in the region. 10 others were wounded. Meantime, to the north, sirens blared and smoke billowed near Israel's northern border with Lebanon as Hezbollah launched a barrage of drones for a second day. Israel fired rockets in response. At least 19 people were hurt. In a televised address, Hezbollah's leader, Hassan Nasrallah, vowed more violence against Israel for its recent strike in Beirut that killed a top commander there.
After the assassination of the martyr leader Syed Fuad, Hezbollah also sees itself obligated to respond. And Iran will respond. And Hezbollah will respond. Our response, God willing, will be strong, influential, and effective.
Separately, Hamas has named its leader in Gaza, Yahya Sinwar, as its new political chief. Sinwar is widely considered the architect of the October 7th attack on Israel. He's been in hiding ever since and is at the top of Israel's kill list. He replaces Ismail Haniyeh, who was assassinated in Tehran last week. A Pakistani man has been charged with allegedly plotting to carry out political assassinations here in the U.S. According to a criminal complaint unsealed today, Asif Merchant spent time in Iran before flying to New York in April to recruit hitmen for the job. The 46-year-old was arrested last month and charged with murder for hire. In a statement, U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland said the Justice Department will not tolerate attempts by an authoritarian regime to target American public officials and endanger America's national security. The National Transportation Safety Board released some 4,000 pages related to its ongoing investigation into a door panel blowout on a Boeing 737 MAX jet back in January. The co-pilot of the Alaska Airlines flight is quoted as saying it was chaos. At a rare investigative hearing today, witnesses for Boeing and its supplier, Spirit Aerosystems, outlined design changes that should prevent future blowouts. But the NTSB chair emphasized that past shortcomings, including 4 missing bolts in the Alaska Airlines door plug.
This isn't a PR campaign for Boeing. You can talk all about where you are today. There's going to be plenty of time for that. We want to know these safety improvements. But what is very confusing for a lot of people who are watching, who are listening, is what was going on then. This is an investigation on what happened on January 5th.
The NTSB chair also said that Boeing has a long way to go to improve its safety culture. The hearing continues tomorrow. In California, firefighters are battling blazes both old and new. The Edge Hill fire in San Bernardino, east of Los Angeles, erupted on Monday afternoon. Some residents had just minutes to evacuate before flames ignited hillsides and completely engulfed homes. As of earlier today, that fire was 75% contained. Hundreds of miles to the north, the Park Fire has been wreaking havoc since late July and is still only 34% contained. It's the 4th largest fire in California's history and has burned more land in the state than all of last year's fires combined. Bloomberg Philanthropies is donating $600 million to the endowments of 4 historically black medical schools. Founder Michael Bloomberg announced the funds at the annual convention of the National Medical Association, a group that advocates for African American physicians. Almost half of black physicians graduate from the 4 historically black medical schools, and the donations will more than double the size of 3 of the school's endowments. On Wall Street today, stocks recovered some after Monday's sell-off. The Dow Jones Industrial Average added nearly 300 points, but closed off its highs of the day. The Nasdaq rose 166 points, or about 1%. The S&P 500 also added 1% on the day. And we have the day's Olympic headlines now, which include some gold medals and some spoiler alerts. The track and field finals in Paris today quickly turned into a golden hour for Team USA. In the men's 1,500 meters, Cole Hocker pulled off a stunning upset, beating a competitive field and topping his own personal best by 3 seconds. Just a short time later in the women's 200, Gabby Thomas sprinted her way to gold after a third-place finish at the last Olympics. Meantime, on the soccer field, Sophia Smith sent the U.S. women's soccer team to the finals after scoring the winning goal against Germany in extra time. They'll face Brazil for gold on Saturday. So as of this evening, the U.S. has racked up 86 medals overall, well ahead of the next best, which is China. Still to come on the NewsHour, a new initiative tries to improve health by bringing care to patients. A rare look at the personal stories behind the stars on the CIA Memorial Wall. And a well-known chef takes his taste buds global in a new TV series.
This is the
Tonight, we're live from Paris with another special edition of Top Story. Triumph on the track at the 2024 Olympics. American Cole Hocker pulling off a stunning upset, winning gold and setting a new record. But we begin with breaking news back at home and the surprising VP pick. Vice President Kamala Harris selecting Minnesota Governor Tim Walz as her running mate. The video just in of the moment she asked if he would join her on the ticket. The pair together as running mates for the first time tonight in Philadelphia as they embark on a campaign blitz. Walz, the dark horse candidate, now defining himself on a national stage. So who is he and what factored into Harris's down-to-the-wire decision? Also tonight, Debbie's devastating floods. The Southeast inundated as the deadly tropical storm stalls along the Atlantic coast. Homes underwater, cars left stranded, and communities cut off. The system setting its sights on the mid-Atlantic and Northeast. Bill Caron standing by with the track and the timing. Up in flames, a fast-moving wildfire engulfing homes in San Bernardino. Firefighters battling the inferno in triple-digit temperatures. We hear from emotional residents who say the fire was unlike anything they've ever seen. Israel's underground hospital. The country bracing for war as Iran and Hezbollah vow to strike back. We'll take you inside the massive medical facility ready for patients as an all-out conflict looms. Crashing on the course. The incredible close call as a plane makes a crash landing narrowly missing a golfer and the pilot miraculously walking away virtually unharmed. Americans' Olympic upset, Team USA's Cole Hocker sprinting past expectations, claiming gold. Track star Gabby Thomas in tears as she claims the top spot on the podium. The nail-biter win for women's soccer as the U.S. punches their ticket to the finals. And the star-studded men's basketball team dominating yet again on the court. Plus, history-making medal. The Cuban wrestler breaking records, clinching a 5th straight gold. What he told me after the incredible win and the powerful moment on the mat, signaling the end of his career. And Team USA's Brittany Griner detailing what it's like leaving the U.S. for the first time after her imprisonment in Russia. How it changed her perspective on the games. Top Story starts right now. And good evening. Top Story live tonight from Paris once again as an act.
Let's do this together. Would you be my running mate?
Tonight, the Democratic ticket is set.
It'll be a privilege to take this with you across the country.
Kamala Harris taps Minnesota Governor Tim Walz as her vice presidential pick.
This campaign is a fight for the future.
The former high school social studies teacher and football coach making his national debut.
As soon-to-be President Harris says, when we fight, we win!
The CBS Evening News starts now. Good evening, everyone. I'm Major Garrett. Nora is on assignment. Welcome to the Spotlight, Tim Walz. There's the Minnesota Governor and Vice President Kamala Harris in battleground Pennsylvania tonight, hitting the stage for the first time together to roaring cheers that lasted more when they arrived than 2 minutes. Harris made the call this morning, banking on the appeal of a straight-talking Midwesterner who used to be a high school teacher and football coach. The duo will now target moderate and independent voters, among others, as they blitz at least 5 battleground states over the next week. We have team coverage of today's announcement, starting with CBS's Nancy Cordes, who reports on how Walz sealed the deal.
Vice President Harris and her new running mate got a rapturous welcome here in Philadelphia, where the line to attend their first joint.
On this Tuesday night, Kamala Harris's chosen one, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, is named her running mate.
Let us fight for the promise of our future.
What he's fought for and how he could potentially win over voters. Disturbing allegations. The lawsuits filed against the coach of multiple Olympic champions. Heavy rain and large hail hammer Calgary. Oh no! The damage to vehicles, homes, and even the city's airport. And getting Olympic gold. Yet another historic victory for Canada as swimming champ Summer McIntosh returns to home soil.
It means the world to see everyone's support for me and Team Canada.
Global National with Donna Friesen. Reporting tonight, Carolyn Jarb.
People in Surrey's Newton neighborhood are on edge after a hair salon was riddled with bullets Sunday night. CTV's Kevin Chirac reports the business owner has no idea why his shop was targeted.
The owner of Souk Haircut didn't want to go on camera, but tells me he was shocked and terrified when he learned what happened, namely because he works with his 3 teenage sons and is fearful it could happen again.
Very fast, boom, boom, boom. Yeah.
Lalit Yadav was closing his restaurant when he says he heard 4 loud noises around 11 p.m. Sunday night.
We are scared, like, you know, in this plaza, so like public place, there is a loss of residents here, right? We are very scared for that. It's not good for like our community.
The barber shop was closed at the time when several shots shattered the business's front window. The plaza 72nd Avenue is home to businesses on the floor level and condos above.
I sometimes come because I live so close, and it's pretty scary that what if like it was one of us was here or
be interested in displaying it. Gave us all. They caught something. Is pretty wondering if you're interested in displaying it. He showed up with a beautiful blue lobster with markings of pink and purple throughout it, which makes it designated as a cotton candy color morph for the lobster. The blue lobster is 1 in 2 million. A cotton candy lobster, that occurs 1 in every 100 million. So it is far more rare than just a standard blue. It's been very popular. People are showing up and they're coming a long way to come see it, and everyone seems pretty pleased. They see that beautiful color and staring back. So it's a beautiful process.
When people the cotton candy, is it sweet? No, of course, that is just about the coloring. And 1 in 100 million is the chances of it being worn that way.
Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. UN's human rights chief and the head of EU foreign policy are the latest leaders to call for urgent de-escalation in the Middle East amidst reports of a possibly imminent retaliatory attack from Iran against Israel and mounting fears of an all-out regional war. President Biden met with his national security team Monday, and the U.S. CENTCOM commander arrived in Israel earlier today. Foreign embassies are evacuating their citizens from Lebanon and the region. Meanwhile, U.S. military personnel were injured Monday in a suspected rocket attack on Al-Assad Air Base in Iraq. Secretary of State Antony Blinken spoke Monday.
We are engaged in intense diplomacy, pretty much round the clock, with a very simple message. All parties must refrain from escalation. All parties must take steps to ease tensions. Escalation is not in anyone's interests. It will only lead to more conflict, more violence, more insecurity.
Israel's killed at least 8 Palestinians in the occupied West Bank amidst an ongoing bloody raid in Jenin and other sites. In Tubas, Israeli forces killed at least 4 people. This is the brother of one of the victims.
His 3-year-old son saw his father on the floor bleeding. He is 3 years old. He's the only one who saw his father bleeding and told us what he saw.
Meanwhile, Israel's finance minister, Bezalel Smotrich, suggested starving the entire Gaza Strip to death could be justified. He told a conference, quote, "Nobody will let us cause 2 million civilians to die of hunger, even though it might be justified and moral, until our hostages are returned," unquote. Smotrich also repeated the Israeli government's goal of, quote, "removing the threat," unquote, of Palestinian statehood. The UN reported child malnutrition in the Gaza Strip jumped nearly 50% in July over the previous month due to Israel's relentless attacks and total blockade. Bangladesh's president has dissolved parliament, clearing the way for new elections to take place following the resignation of Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, who fled the country Monday after weeks of student-led protests. Just hours after Hasina's departure, the Bangladeshi president Mohammed Shahabuddin ordered the release of jailed opposition leader Khaleda Zia, a longtime rival of Hasina. The streets of Dhaka erupted in celebration Monday in response to her ouster. As the military is set to appoint an interim government, student leaders have called on Bangladeshi Nobel Peace Prize laureate Muhammad Yunus to be at its head.
You're watching France 24. This is Daybreak. I'm Stuart Norval. Headlines today. A first joint rally for Kamala Harris and her new running mate, Tim Walz, as the pair take aim at the US presidential election. That as Harris elevates the governor, military veteran and union supporter to be her right-hand man. We'll hear from our Washington correspondent shortly. Hamas names the man widely said to be the mastermind behind the October the 7th attacks on Israel as its new leader. The move seen as a sign the hardline wing of the group aims to keep fighting. And one big expected result, but one big shock as well at the Olympic athletics last night here in Paris. We'll bring you up to date with all the latest Olympic news. So he's the kind of person who makes people feel like they belong. The British Prime Minister Keir Starmer has doubled down on his pledge that those who took part in recent violent disorder in the UK will feel the full force of the law. And after the second high-level so-called Cobra meeting in 2 days. Last night there was a vigil in Southport where the riots were sparked by the killing there of 3 girls in a knife attack. Britain has been shaken by violence for more than a week as police clashed with crowds spouting anti-immigrant and Islamophobic slogans in cities and towns from north to southern England and in Northern Ireland as well.
I went up to Southport to speak to police who had been the first responders to the terrible attack that happened. They described the scene to me, what they had to deal with when they officers act on their own streets later the same day. The same officers who had been the first responders. Our first duty is to support the police and that they are keeping them safe.
Keir Starmer there. Now, one no surprise and one big surprise in the athletics last night at the Stade de France in the Olympics. The no surprise, well, that was the gold for Gabby Thomas in the women's 200 metres. The big surprise, though, was the gold for the USA's Cole Hocker in the men's 1500 metres. He produced a remarkable surge in the home straight to carry him past the 2 favourites. Now, the boxer Imane Khalif of Algeria has advanced to the gold medal bout in the women's welterweight division at the Paris Olympics, moving 1 win away from then what she calls be the best response to the worldwide scrutiny that she's faced over misconceptions about her gender. With 1 more victory, she would win Algeria's 2nd boxing gold medal and its first in women's boxing. Crowd roaring for her and chanting her name repeatedly during her 3-round fight. Elif will then either win a gold or silver when she completes the tournament on Friday. Let's hear, though, from some of her supporters.
It was incredible. All the feelings, emotion, all the Algerians were there to support Iman. And she's going to bring us the second gold medal for our country.
Great. Let's have a look then at the medal table for you. The athletics pushing the US to the top, with China and Australia in second and third. France are in fourth place for now, with Great Britain there in fifth. So as we head towards the end of the Olympics now, how has the experience been for the millions of tourists that have flocked to the event across France? Well, let's take stock, shall we? This report from James Andre and Lou Hoopel.
Well, here in the French press, we read everything that they're rather happy with their Olympics.
It's been a fantastic atmosphere.
I could get to...
It's of the ordinary. It's a chance.
The app isn't stressed at all. On the contrary, above all, you
a spirit of celebration. So I think people are really enjoying the opening ceremony with all the fact that people are really enjoying being it, and that the French athletes are bringing back a lot of medals too. I think life has changed.
Well, with sports arenas such as the Place de la Concorde, but also the Castle, I'm across here rather worried that it'll be difficult to better this in 4 years' time.
Oh, I think it'll be tough, but I think we're up for the challenge.
Something that surprised us is that there's no alcohol for sale in venues. LA will do that very differently, I think. What is LA? I mean, LA has the sun. I mean, I don't know. LA has a couple of football stadiums, and yeah, you guys have the perfect venues.
These days, the French press is an article about these Parisians, the capital, and I feel they're missing out. Those who've travelled here on purpose, though, appear to be having a very...
James Andre there, soaking up the sun and the atmosphere here in Paris. Has been a lot. So, the newsroom there in 15 minutes.
Over the
As the Middle East remains on a high alert in anticipation of an Iranian retaliation, Arab diplomats have been exhausting every effort to prevent a wider war. On Tuesday in Cairo, Egyptian Foreign Minister hosted his Lebanese counterpart in another effort to defuse tensions. I contacted the U.S. Secretary of State more than 3 times within a very short period.
The streets of Dhaka appeared calmer Tuesday, with no reports of new violence as jubilant protesters thronged the ousted leader's residence.
Is that an honest answer to the question?
Sarah.
But in every exchange, I'm so honesty. And of truth that stops us all in our tracks. May I just ask you, it's funny? The world.
I don't know sitting in this chair what they would rescue from their home if it was about to be destroyed.
Fingers crossed we get a yes from Russell Crowe. He couldn't quite get his head around the concept, so we had to pay him a visit and actually show him what we meant. Anyway, hopefully we'll hear back from Russell's agent soon.
Sean McAuliffe's Eve of Destruction, next Wednesday at 8.
Hey Aaron, how do you spell Australian Broadcasting Corporation? ABC? Well, it's more of an acronym than a correct spelling, but I'll accept it because that's precisely where viewers will find Guy Montgomery's Guy Mon Spelling Bee, the thrilling new show that challenges Australia's best comedians in the ancient art of spelling. Join myself and Aaron Chen as we put them to the test and watch them squirm.
I think this show will be totally OMG.
That is an acronym.
Guy Montgomery's Guy Mon Spelling Bee starts next Wednesday.
Well, anyone with a mortgage wanting relief from cost of living pain would have been sorely disappointed by yesterday's Reserve Bank Board meeting. Rates are staying where they are, probably for the rest of this year. But is government assistance, especially energy bill relief, making the situation better or worse for households? Well, the Reserve Bank's been back at a Senate inquiry into cost of living pain today, and it's clear it's keeping an eagle eye on all levels of public spending, suggesting some level of tension between governments, plural, on one side and the bank on the other. So we'll take a look at the evidence given this Wednesday. We're live from Canberra, recognising traditional custodians around the capital. I'm Greg Jennett. Welcome to Afternoon Briefing. Also today, we'll go to the US for a further look at the man now chosen by Kamala Harris to be the next vice president. That'd be if the Democrat pairing managed to win the November election, of course. Tim Walz, the governor of Minnesota, is at one level an unusual pick, but was a very deliberate selection all the same, for bringing governing experience along to the ticket and maybe to take a bit of a fight up to Donald Trump and his running mate J.D. Vance. We'll check in, as we regularly do, with our US analyst Bruce Walpy of the US Studies Centre. And closer to home, when the Parliament comes back for the spring session next week, it's strongly anticipated that the government will be very close to unveiling a package of electoral laws that'll include caps on donations and more transparency over who has donated what. There are some hints coming about what that package will contain, and we'll come back to that a little later in this hour. First, though, Jim Chalmers isn't conceding for a moment that government spending is putting pressure on inflation, even though the Reserve... Now.
Good afternoon. It's 2 p.m. in Singapore and Hong Kong, 11:30 in New Delhi, and 1 o'clock in Jakarta. I'm Ilakia Silveraji. Your headlines this hour. A Thai court is set to rule on the fate of Progressive Move Forward Party. It's called to control royal leaders in Bangladesh expect members of the Indian government to be finalized today, with laureate Muhammad Yunus leading it, while he now faces the challenge of order and holding elections. And Hamas names Yahya Sinwar as a political after he was killed. Israel says Sinwar was the mastermind behind the October 7 attack that sparked the Gaza war.
Good morning. It's 7 o'clock on today's programme. Police forces across the country warn of more far-right protests after call to action far-right social media channels.
Plus, the country's most senior prosecutor says he's considering terrorism offences for some suspected rioters. We'll ask the government about that and accusations from Elon Musk about so-called two-tier policing.
And after a mosque was attacked in Hull, we hear how communities there and elsewhere are moving to protect themselves from rioters.
It's Wednesday, the 7th of August. Your headlines. An extra 2,200 specialist riot officers are deployed after far-right social media channels call for a night of demonstrations. As the first offenders plead guilty, the Prime Minister says those going through the court systems will face swift justice.
Some in relation to online activity, and a number of them are already in court. And I'm now expecting substantive sentencing before the end of this week.
A service is held for one of the 3 girls who were fatally stabbed in Southport as the inquest into their killing begins. Also ahead, Big Dad Energy. US voters give their assessment of Kamala Harris's pick for running mate. And pay disputes may soon be resolved, but we look at why the NHS still faces an exodus of talent to foreign countries.
You're watching DW News, coming to you live from Berlin. Kamala Harris now has her running mate. Tim Walz will become Vice President of the United States if Harris wins the White House in November. So what are Democrats hoping the Minnesota governor can bring to the ticket? Also ahead on our show today, a Nobel Prize-winning economist has been appointed to lead Bangladesh's interim government. The choice of Muhammad Yunus fulfills a key demand of student protesters who forced the resignation of longtime Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. And Hamas names its new political chief. Yahya Sinwar is accused of masterminding the October 7th terror attacks. His whereabouts are unknown. Israel has vowed to kill him. I'm Claire Richardson. Thank you so much for joining us. We will turn to those stories in just a moment, but first at this hour, we do have some breaking news coming in. At least one person has been found dead after a hotel collapsed in Western Germany. Police say 8 others are still trapped under the rubble and could be seriously injured. This in the town of Kruf. We're going to bring you more on this story as we get updates throughout the hour. Turning now to our top story, though, in the United States.
Thank you for watching and privilege of your time. This is Amir Shakil 5858. I am Amir Goodman. Have a good life.